So you are in the right place. We are Impact Academy, and we're here to tell you all about what's going on the ever-changing apprenticeship landscape. So I'm just going to introduce the session, and then we're going to have a short presentation from Debbie, who's the COO of the organisation, and we're also going to have a chat with Keith, who's one of our senior tutors at the organisation as well. But just to give you a bit of background as to who we are, so we are one of the UK's government-approved training providers for apprenticeships in this country. And the very cool thing about us is that we're quite niche in that, as the name would suggest, we try to focus our efforts on impact objectives. We work with impact businesses, and we're all about how can we be green, ethical and sustainable. And Keith will share some additional information about that in terms of some of the courses that we deliver that specialise in those areas. But just to give you a little bit of a flavour of who we are, we have a variety of apprenticeship programmes that we offer at the moment, about 20 courses actually, and we try to keep them around 4 key focus areas. Those 4 areas being housing and property. So we do a lot with kind of estate agents, property developers, that sort of thing. And those courses tend to be about how do we understand and interpret the regulations around in housing organisations. We do an awful lot actually in the digital space, certainly post-COVID as well. So we have specialist qualifications in terms of digital marketing and junior content production. So if you can imagine, certainly in this post-COVID landscape, there's never really been a more important time for your business to have a strong online social presence. And those apprenticeships are all about how do we make your company known to your clients, your customers. So for example, that might be, how do we get your company on top of the Google hits? Well, that might be with some search engine optimization training, which is covered in our digital marketing apprenticeship program. So that's our second theme. Then we move into the one that Keith's going to share us some more information about later. And this is the one that really is quite close to our hearts. And this is why we theme our organisation around the impact space. So we have a lot to do with energy efficiencies, how companies can make themselves more green, and how they can provide themselves to be sustainable organisations as well. And not trying to steal too much of Debbie's thunder, but one thing I always say to people when we're talking about apprenticeships, forget the adage that apprenticeships are for 16 to 18-year-olds. That's absolutely not the case now. There is no age limit on apprenticeships. We think the oldest apprentice in the country at the moment is 82 years young. And because of that, the levels and the standards of apprenticeships have changed as well. So it's not just your BTECs and your MVQs anymore. We deliver apprenticeships right up to level 7 and master's degrees qualifications as well. And one of the ones that we do in sustainability and our senior leader program is a master's level qualification that's run in collaboration with Cambridge University. So just get that out of your head that this isn't just BTECs and MVQs anymore. There's some really strong level qualifications that can be done on an apprenticeship now. And then finally, our last kind of area as well is we do a general operations and business administration type of apprenticeship. So we've got 3 or 4 in those space, such as team leader roles, operations, management apprenticeships, business administration apprenticeships. But what we find when we're engaging with employers is we've got quite a stack of apprenticeship programs that you can go out there, and there's probably a nice fit between some of those roles and the employees that are working at your organisation. So enough from me from the time being. What I'm going to do now is pass you over to Debbie to talk to you a little bit more about what apprenticeships really are, how they've changed in the last decade or so, and why you should be considering them for your organisation. And then importantly, what financial incentives are there available to your companies at the minute, because there's some huge support from government at the moment with some very, very significant discounts. But it's never really been a more appropriate time to start talking about apprenticeships. Debbie, over to you.
Great, Todd. Thanks very much. I'm just going to share my screen. Can you hear me okay?
Coming through loud and clear.
Great. Okay, so here we go. Okay, slideshow. 1 second. The pictures are hiding the screen. There we go. As Todd said, welcome everyone to this apprenticeship webinar. We're looking to focus on it, so trying to give you all the information you need to make a decision on whether apprenticeships is the right route for you as a business. I'm going to talk to you in general about how it works and what it all means. As Todd said, I'm Debbie Ryan, I'm the COO of Impact Academy, and we're here to support you as a government approved training provider. Well, firstly, let's talk about which companies can have an apprenticeships and how the government distinguish between a different type of company. For apprenticeship purposes, the government has split companies into two categories. A large employer is a company that has an annual payroll bill of more than £3 million a year. And they are classed as a levy employer. And what that means is that actually the government tax you an additional tax directly through your payroll. And currently that additional tax is 0.25% of your monthly payroll bill. That money is taken from you and it's put into a pot in government and is reserved for you to spend on apprenticeships. If you don't spend it, they keep it. So it's really worthwhile thinking about and identifying that if you are an apprenticeship provider, if you are paying that levy tax, you need to know where it's going and knowing just how much you've got in that pot. Everybody else, and that's the majority of the country, to be fair, are classed as a non-levy employer. But that's great because it means there are a whole range of different incentives that the government will be able to support you with on your apprenticeship journey. As Todd said, apprentices can be any age at all. Absolutely, there are no age restrictions with regard to it. As he said, the oldest apprentice at the moment is currently 82, and not that I would want to retrain at that age, it's open to anyone. Not only that, it's open to any staff within your business. So that can be existing staff that you're looking to upskill, or it can be new staff that you're looking to recruit to fill vacancies and skills gaps that you might have in the business. Now, if you are looking to recruit, then there are different terms and conditions that apply to that apprenticeship role. So, for example, the national minimum wage for apprentices at the moment today is £4.30 an hour. That changes in April, it goes up to about £4.80. But currently what that means is that you can choose as an employer to recruit somebody new into the post and pay them £4.30 or above. So there's a real incentive there for employers to bring somebody in on a training package, and then whilst they're doing their apprenticeship, they can you can benefit from that lower wage. But of course, it's up to you as an employer, whatever you choose to pay them, as long as it's above that threshold. Now, I get asked time and time again, does the government pay the salary? No. Apprentices are your employees, just like everybody else in the business. As I say, existing staff can be apprentices too, and you're responsible for their salary, payroll, and on-cost national insurance contributions, etc., auto-enrolment, as you would any other employee. You can choose, if you're recruiting somebody new, to put them on a fixed-term contract for the duration of the apprenticeship, and then you've got an opportunity when they've completed their qualification to review it. As I said, existing staff can do apprenticeships too, and if you're a non-levy employer, you can have up to 10 apprentices at any one time, and that can be a mix of existing staff that you're putting on a programme, plus new staff as well. Any role can do an apprenticeship, so it's not just for entry-level jobs. As Toz mentioned, we deliver all the way up to a net zero senior leadership qualification, which is a level 7 qualification equivalent to a master's. We do that in partnership with Cambridge University, and it's actually a fantastic programme because you get to spend one day a week, one day a month in Cambridge University. The rest is delivered virtually, but I'll talk to you about how we deliver apprenticeships in a few moments' time. For existing staff, if you want to put them on, think of the apprenticeship as the wraparound training and qualification support that is applied to your existing staff. Now, for an apprentice, as I said, the minimum wage is £4.30 an hour, and to do their apprenticeship in the given time, they must work a minimum of 30 hours a week. The government has set the curriculum for all apprenticeships, and they've also set the cost of the apprenticeship and the minimum time that that apprenticeship must be delivered across. All apprenticeships, when they're delivered, have a course duration, and then they all have a 3-month endpoint assessment period at the end. So what that means in practice, you've got your practical training period, and then there's a window of time at the end of the programme where they will be called upon to do their final assessments, final presentations, etc. And that is done with an independent body. So if I equate it to being at school, think of us as the school provider delivering the training, and then the endpoint assessment organisation is an independent body, like an examining body that comes in and does the testing. So it's completely independent of one another. And the learners are with us until they go through what we call gateway, and then we hand them over to the endpoint assessment organisation. Apprentices, when we deliver apprenticeships, as a result of COVID, for us, all our apprenticeships are now delivered virtually. So a bit like today, we'll teach them through Zoom or Teams or wherever fits for you as a business. And we'll deliver their learning in either one-to-one sessions or in group sessions with other learners doing the same apprenticeship standard. Now that is what we call off-the-job training. Silly phrase, I know, but that's what the government have decided it to call it. But what that means is practice, is the learners, i.e. your employees, don't leave the workplace. They're with you for their full contracted hours. They will meet their tutor initially in the first month for once a week. And then after that first month, the tutor will be with them perhaps up to once a month. The tutor will set them tasks and assignments to complete whilst they're in work. And then in addition to that, they'll be required to put into practice what they're learning and actually build their portfolio by showing that they are taking the skills that they're being taught and they're applying them in their workplace. So let me give you a real-time example of how that might work. One of the most popular apprenticeships at the moment is digital marketing. We've all been through COVID, we know what it's like, and we've all had to move our businesses online in the main. The digital marketing apprenticeship is a level 3 apprenticeship. It's a 12-month course plus a 3-month endpoint assessment period. Now, when the tutor meets with the learner, they've got the flexibility to work with you, the employer, and the learner to change the order of the apprenticeship. So, for example, as a business, you might have a big campaign coming up for Easter, and you want to get out your message and your brand and your products to your audience over social media. So the tutor will work with the learner, giving them the skills they need to create a digital marketing campaign for your products. They're then expected to go back into the workplace, put that campaign together, and actually evidence that they have created that campaign, they've delivered it on social media, they've analysed the outcome, and they've improved the sales of your business. All of that is what we class as off-the-job training. And all these activities and similar types of activities, that 20% off the job. Now that 20% off the job is very flexible. It can be done in one day if that's what works for you as an employer. It can be done an hour here, an hour there, etc. if that suits you. Or you can say, I want to save up a week at a time and give my employee that space to do their learning and to build their portfolios. It really is a very, very flexible route. Now, as Todd said before, we do a whole range of different incentive programs, and they run from a level 2 program all the way up to a level 7. The government supports employers by contributing to the cost of that apprenticeship. So if you're a Levy employer, you've already paid that tax, that money is sitting in a pot for you to spend. If you don't spend it, the government get to keep it. But for non-Levy employers, what the government has said they will do is for every apprenticeship course, they will pay 95% of the cost of that course. So in practice, what that means is the Junior Energy Manager course that Keith is going to talk to you about in a short while. That's a level 3 course, and a level 3 equivalent to a couple of A levels in old money, as they say. Okay. It's an 18-month course with a 3-month endpoint assessment period. Now, the tariff that the government set for that course is £9,000, but the government will pay on behalf of you as an employer 95% of that cost. So they pay £8,550, and as an employer, you pay just £450, but you can pay that monthly. So to put one of your members of staff or recruit a new member of staff, effectively that would cost you £25 a month to upskill your workforce. And you can have as many as 10 employees, 10 apprenticeships on an apprenticeship programme at any one time. Yeah, you can have as many as you want. You've built that pot up, you've paid the tax, it's up to you how you spend that money. Okay. We've talked a little bit about how the training works, and what we encourage with all our learners is to create WhatsApp groups around the training programme so they can engage with other learners and other people within the sector, helping each other as they're learning and progressing through the course. And finally, it's really important to stress that if you are thinking of employing, then we can help you fill that post. It's part of the package. It doesn't cost anything. We'll do the recruitment for you free of charge. So that means we can work with you to develop the job spec and the person spec. Remember, there's no age limits. It's up to you to develop a job role and specification that fits your business. We'll then help you decide what the apprenticeship standard or the course is, and then we'll advertise that vacancy for you on the National Apprenticeship website, but also on the likes of Indeed. And we'll do initial sifting and then hand you qualified in CVs for you to review and choose who you want to interview. Remember, as I've said, they're your employees. It's up to you who you pick and who you want to work and who will fit within your business. Once you've employed someone, everything operates in exactly the same way as if they were a normal employee. So you can put them on probation. If the probation doesn't work and you've put them through a performance improvement plan, you're free to get rid of them and replace them with somebody else, exactly the same way as you would any other employee. Everything applies exactly the same. If you've put them on a fixed term contract, you can review that contract at the end and then move them over to a permanent contract, or move them on if you think they didn't fit for your business. It is very, very flexible, and the courses are there to be taken advantage of. That's it from me, Todd. Back over to you. I know Keith's here to talk a little bit about very specifically the Junior Energy Manager Apprenticeship, and then we'll have an opportunity when Keith's done a bit of a deep dive to answer any questions that you might have around the general process. And we encourage people to start thinking about them questions now, and you can use the chat or the QA function on Zoom to submit your questions, and we'll answer them live for you when Keith's finished his presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Debbie. That's very informative, particularly going into the incentives that are available at the moment as well. I think a lot of people don't quite realise just how much of an opportune moment it is right now with that 95% support from the government. It's an absolute no-brainer for a lot of organisations that I speak to in terms of upskilling members of staff and taking advantage of that scheme. So thanks for sharing some information on that. Would you like to stop your screen share? And then Keith, if there's anything you'd like to share, feel free to use that function. Otherwise, we can just have a conversation. But for everybody else's benefit, Keith is one of our senior tutors at Impact Academy. He's been with us for a while and he's very, very knowledgeable on all things energy. So Keith runs our Junior Energy Management Apprenticeship amongst some other courses as well, but today we really wanted to focus on the GEM course in particular. So Keith, over to you. If you want to give us a bit of an intro, feel free to share your screen if you want to share any materials with the audience,
And as I've mentioned in the chat function, if anybody's got any questions, just use the chat function or the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and I'll ask these questions of the team live as and when they come in. Thanks, everyone. And over to you, Keith.
Okay, thanks, Todd. If any of you have seen me just sort of glancing out my window, I think it's a good introduction, because I'm looking out on a blizzard at the moment. So I don't know if, what the conditions are where you are, but it's a stark reminder that we're in a situation where most of us are aware of, heard of climate change and some of the issues surrounding that. And it's a good place, I think, for us to start, because when we're talking and thinking about energy, energy is an integral part of some of the things that have been driving climate change in our society. And the Junior Energy Manager Apprenticeship sort of sits right in that sweet spot of trying to tackle some of the issues that have given us this problem in the first place, if you like. One of the things being, as we're probably quite well aware, fossil fuels and the burning of fossil fuels, which have given us that supply of energy on which we've developed economically and thrived. However, we've not really taken into account the impacts, some of the other impacts of using energy and generating energy in that way. These are coming to become a stark reality nowadays, especially with the massive price hike in global fuel prices that we are all beginning to see start to filter through and hit our purses at home and in our businesses. So
Keith, does the Junior Energy Manager Apprenticeship then, does this give businesses the skills to be able to put measures in place within their business to address their energy consumption?
Absolutely. So that's really one of the main focus areas for the energy manager. I can talk a little bit about the energy manager role, but I always like to think of it in sort of two parts, really. There's energy supply, so where do we get our energy from? And then there's the energy demand side. So energy demand is where we're actually using energy in the workplace and in our business to transform goods, to provide services and transport. Whereas obviously energy supply is, okay, where do we get our electricity from? And I think largely people, or we used to say, well, energy is invisible. This is one of the problems. We don't think about it. We switch a light switch and it's there and that's it. We always expect it to be there. I think the recent turbulence that we found across the globe and in our society has brought that energy awareness to the fore now. And people are beginning to realize, yes, this is an issue. It's something we're not in control of largely. So the junior energy or the energy manager role is really there to try and see how we can tackle these issues that we face. And there are big plans and moves within our society and within the marketplace to change the way that we do things, change the way that we supply energy, to get us thinking about how we manage it more effectively, and thinking about what measures we can put in place to reduce our energy costs, the carbon emissions that those energy use causes, and how to actually reduce it in the first place. From a
practical perspective then, as a business owner, if we've got a junior energy manager, have you seen examples where businesses have saved money directly from the actions of the energy manager?
Absolutely. I mean, I think particularly with larger companies as well, where they use a lot of outsourcing and are delivered energy services from consultants and other businesses. that tends to become a bit of a norm. Okay, we've got something to do. Someone is either approaching us and offering an energy saving measure, and they tend to get contracted into do that. I think what we've seen is through developing the talent within those organizations, we've built the confidence for even our learners to take on some of those tasks. So we've seen, rather than them go out to a consultant to do, you know, let's say a heating system survey, they can actually do that themselves with the right skills and the right knowledge in how to go about it. And we've seen some really good benefits from that and results from that, where the learner has, not knowing anything about it, really learned about the approach that they need to take, developed a plan, looked for funding. So all the way through each stage of a project development, through to the delivery of that project, and then the monitoring of it afterwards.
Okay, and all apprenticeships have knowledge, skills, that are attributed to the course. So what does the junior energy manager get when doing the apprenticeship in terms of the KSBs, as we call them internally?
So for me, there are some key elements to the program, the Junior Energy Manager program. One is initially about gathering data, and I think organizations generally have one of two problems. Either they have so much data they haven't got a clue what to do with it, so they can't see the wood for the trees, don't know where to start, and they're sort of stymied from even knowing how to move forward. And there are other organizations that don't have the data or don't know where to get the data from, so they're data poor. Either way, we need to start at that point. We need to look and see what data we do have, and we start to build on that. And the Junior Energy Manager program is about a continuous improvement process. So we've got to start somewhere. So where do we start? Gathering the data, and then they need to have the skills, not just to have the data, because, you know, in some cases we're awash with data, but as we've seen, lessons from COVID, I'd say, is that we're not very good at interpreting data as a body of humans, and that is a critical skill for a junior energy manager or energy manager, to gather the data, to verify that the data is accurate and right, and then learning how to analyze it, how to interpret it.
Fantastic, yeah. And when you, obviously they're going through this apprenticeship standard, I was mentioning before that there's the practical period and then an endpoint assessment. What does the endpoint assessment look like for the junior energy manager? Yeah, so there are three parts to it for junior energy manager. There's a knowledge test, which is a multi-choice questions. It's an hour-and-a-half paper, I think about 6 questions. So that's the first part that really looks to test the knowledge that they built up over the apprenticeship. Then it goes into what is really the main part of it, which is an audit, an energy audit. So they will take a facility, one of their buildings or a number of sites, and they will actually do a physical audit, and the assessor will follow them round, shadow them round as they do an energy audit on that building, understanding the key energy using equipment and systems that are in place, looking to detect how people are using the building, and everything about the building, really. So bringing that together and turning it into a set of recommendations which should be acted upon. So that's the second part. The final part is to have a professional interview for about an hour to hour and a half, which then covers all of the other elements of the program. So things like the broader areas within sustainability, how we manage and look at waste, how we reduce our other utility use like water within the building, and some of those broader issues, maybe a look at transport, which may not be their
immediate remit, but transportation being such a significant factor in carbon emissions, it's also an important area to understand. And
Keith, so thanks very much. You've given us a real kind of overview of some of the benefits from an employer's perspective. But if I take my employer cap off and put my learner's hat on, what sort of longer term prospects, what sort of doors might this GEM apprenticeship open for some of the learners that are coming through?
Yeah, I mean, I think you only need to look at the job market at the moment, and you can see if I think back probably eight years ago, we were trying to encourage people to consider sustainability. We were talking about carbon reduction and energy improvement measures. Now the marketplace seems awash of opportunities, frankly, and they can be quite diverse. A lot of our apprentices are moving into environmental roles, in sustainability roles, into renewable energy deployment, as well as retaining the role as an energy manager and becoming a more senior employee in that energy management role. In some cases, we've seen the line managers who were the energy managers moving on, and the apprentices is now being able to move into those roles to take strategic position within some major organizations that we deal with. So I think it's a very exciting space, and I think it's full of opportunity for the future and these skills that we learn throughout the course are very valuable and transferable.
That's brilliant.
And it's not, I mean, yeah, I was just going to say, one of the questions I get asked a lot is it just for energy companies, the junior energy manager? And it's not. Yeah. It's for any business that wants to be more conscious about their energy consumption, more conscious about the climate, more conscious about the mark they leave on the planet as well. Or a business that wants to save some money because their bills are too high. All are valid reasons to start an apprenticeship program in the energy space.
Absolutely. And I think I would add to that as well. So I know we have the skills, knowledge and behaviours that are attached to our apprenticeships, but there are some of the intangible or less tangible areas which are absolutely critical to the way society is going to develop and the impact that we can have on society. And that largely is what I call asking the right questions. I'm as a tutor, I'm always banging my head thinking, no, we're asking the wrong questions. If we ask the wrong questions, we get the wrong answers. So it's trying to encourage our students to think critically, to be disruptive, to really challenge the way we do things. And if you'll indulge me, if we've got a minute or two, I was just thinking probably last weekend, while I'm cooking the dinner and washing the vegetables, a sink, it's a very wasteful tool that we have everywhere in our lives. We're spending a fortune on purifying water, putting it into the system, using energy to drive it through our pipelines to be fresh and drinkable. And it's having basically a single use. I know it recycles back in the system eventually, but we use it once it goes away through our sink back into the drain. A sink is terrible. It's a terrible, wasteful, useful, has its uses, but it's terribly wasteful in terms of that precious utility that we have, which is water. So that's my
Thank you very much, Keith.
We've had someone out there that needs to redesign and start thinking about redesigning the thing. Think. The point is, it's that sort of thinking that we need to ask.
Absolutely.
To use to draw out the leaders of tomorrow, which we want to upskill.
Without doubt. We've had a few questions that come in actually whilst we've been talking. Audience, feel free. This is kind of a last opportunity now. If there's anything else you want to submit, just use the chat function or the Q&A function. But just to answer off a few of the things that have come through, yes, we do have a course booklet information available. Debbie's just shared it in the chat. But what we will do is we've captured everybody's email address when you signed up, and we'll send you all the information relating to our course booklet. One of the other questions that came in was about the course duration. Now, this varies from course to course. Now, anything from 12 months for some of the lower level, the sort of level 2s and level 3 qualifications, right up to around 30 months for some of the more complex or some of the more senior roles, such as the level 7 course or the senior leadership program that Debbie referenced earlier. And then variety of stuff in between, depending on what sort of qualification you're going for and what sort of skill set and knowledge statement needs to be covered on that apprenticeship program. But we're very approachable. We love to do these kind of online interactive sessions, but we also love to just pick up the phone and have an old-fashioned conversation. So please, we'll share our contact information after the event. Feel free to reach out, either email, phone, text, WhatsApp, whatever you need. We can respond to your queries as they come in. I'm just going to ask our panel.
I've had a couple of questions. Sorry, I've had a couple of questions that have come directly to me. Sorry. So one question is about eligibility in terms of pre-qualification, so other qualifications that people have had. And then another question is about functional skills. So when we assess somebody's suitability for an apprenticeship, before they start the apprenticeship, what we actually do with them is do a skill scan. We call it a skill scan, skill radar assessment. And basically what we're looking for is any existing skills that they've got and how suitable their level of education is for the apprenticeship that they want to do. Now that skill scan does a couple of things. A, it's great for the tutor because it gives the tutor an opportunity to look at the past experience of what a student has. But also from an employer's perspective, you don't want us as an apprenticeship provider to train your staff in something that they're already well versed in. So we can adjust the apprenticeship content based on that skill scan. And in some cases that reduces the price of the apprenticeship as well. So it's a really valuable tool. However, what I always say is, although we can take it out of the apprenticeship, it's still delivered in the final assessment or final exam at the end. So in some cases, it might be wise to have that refresh on the way as well. Secondly, it's a requirement of government that everyone has functional skills, i.e. maths and English at level C or above. So when we go through the onboarding and the enrolment process with any employee, we will look for them certificates. A lot of people, if you're my age and if someone asked me to find my certificates, after rummage around the loft in the garage for 2 days, I'd still come back and say I couldn't find them. We do have facilities available, so we can go and check people's qualification levels, and then as a last resort we can go back to schools and try and get copies of them qualifications as well. And if all else fails, we can deliver functional skills as part of the apprenticeship as well, so nobody loses out. That's it from me, Todd. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I'm glad you picked them up because I hadn't seen those ones that come through. There's nothing else in my inbox. So I guess all that's left for us to say is thank you very much for joining us at this webinar. We'll probably continue to do a few more of these over the coming years. And as and when the government release new information relating to incentives or co-payments, then we'll share that with you guys as well at an appropriate time. As I mentioned, we've captured everybody's email address, so we'll drop out the course booklet so you can see just what sort of apprenticeships we have on offer at the minute. But please just feel free to reach out, give us a phone call, drop us an email, send us a text, whatever you want. If you've got some questions that you'd need answering, or if you think an apprentice might be right for your business and you'd like to explore that further, then please get in touch with us and we'd love to have a conversation with you. Thanks very much, and we hope you enjoyed the session.